and welcome to the Milk House in my kitchen, where I'm going to be showing you how we're going to convert that chicken that we put in the crock pot last week, and how we're going to convert that chicken into another meal. Show you how to make a squash dressing. Your family will love it. Dressing is not just for Thanksgiving. So this is what you're going to need, the basics of what you're going to need for the squash dressing. So I made some cornbread. This is my homemade cornbread. I go to my freezer and find what is a leftover bread, and I found this beautiful leftover bread my mother made, and it was in the freezer, so it's called her dilly bread, so I'm looking forward to throwing that in for our dressing. We also need the chicken broth. I have the chicken broth, remember when I cooked the chicken, so we have the chicken broth. You need some onions, a little butter to saute that in. I've got from the garden some fresh sage. If you have fresh sage, this makes it so wonderful. If you don't, use some dried sage, but do use sage because, as my daddy would say, that makes a dressing right there, is the sage and black pepper. And then I have a little thyme as well. I don't have a lot of the fresh squash coming off. It's middle of August, it's hot here, and the squash is tired, and so it gave up the ghost. I have 2 fresh ones left over, but look, I canned zucchini squash. So I can just pop this lid, and I have got my squash ready. I don't know, it reminds me of home and a big Sunday meal with family coming over, and this feeds a lot of people. So I'm just got my butter in the skillet, and we are going to saute our vegetables. So we've got the onions, and I've got the 2 last squash for the season. It seems like the fresh squash. But because I want a little more squash in my squash dressing, I have chosen to open a can of my zucchini squash and put in here as well. So we're going to saute that zucchini squash as well. So this is going to be so nice. Now this is just going to be al dente. So you're just wanting it to be a little translucent is where you want to get this to. I made fresh cornbread this morning. I love to make cornbread. It's one of my favorite things. So, because I do grind the cornmeal, and it makes a very, very nutty cornbread. And of course, I use that secret ingredient, the 2, that is my lard, and I also use our buttermilk. And that transforms your cornbread. So what we're going to do here for a very, very simple and easy cornbread dressing that your family is going to love is we're just going to crumble up the bread that you have. You can use fresh bread as well, but I always think it's kind of a surprise, and to find that and to repurpose it, if you will, that food that you put in the freezer and you found, it's like, oh, what are we going to convert this food into, so it's a brand new meal. Now I came from a large family, and I tend to cook for a large group of people, and here on the farm I never know how many people are going to be coming by, and I love to have food, hot food to serve them, or something for them to eat if they're hungry. So they normally know that Reeves has got something either on the stove or something I can pull out of the refrigerator for them. So we're looking super good. I think I'm gonna go ahead and put all this in. There's no exact measurements on this because it depends on how big you're cooking for your family and what you want. The other thing that I do, because we'll probably have leftovers, even though I've already got 5-6 people here on the farm that's going to be eating this with me later, if I have leftovers, I'm going to put it in the freezer and I can pull it out for, let's say, dinner for 2 one night. This could also be a gluten-free dinner if you used gluten-free bread. And cornbread can be made gluten-free. So I've decided I'm going to cheat on this, and I'm not going to use all my cornbread. We're just going to use maybe half of my cornbread. You can see how beautiful that is. Because I might use that cornbread for something else a little later. And this is pretty nutty here, so isn't that just beautiful? Nice. Again, these things just remind me of home, and who doesn't want to be reminded of home where there's food and there's good smells and there's love all around. Next, if you remember the chicken that I had deboned earlier, we're gonna put this in, and these are some pretty big pieces. Again, I used a little dark meat and I used a little bit of the white meat. Oh, this is gonna be so, so good. You're gonna be very, very popular. So we're gonna give that a little stir. I use my hands a lot because, you know, I can feel it, whether it's too dry or not moist enough. And then you also have to put the love into it. And so anytime you're cooking, you have to put love into it. It's a real science, actually. And then I put a few farm fresh eggs. You actually don't have to, but I find that it gives it a little more fluffy. It's a little fluffier than cake-like. But if you like it cake-like, you don't have to put the eggs in. And all done there. Then next, this is the sauteed onions and squash that we did, both fresh, as well as my canned squash from last summer's garden. So that is done. And now we need to put some of our bone broth. So this is where the bone broth plays a very, very important role. And this is kind of like jelly. So it's got that great gelatin in it that you're looking for skin, for joints, for just health. So I like mine pretty moist because it will dry out as you cook it. So we've got the cornbread in, the bread in, the eggs, the chicken, and the squash, and the chicken broth, which is going to give it that beautiful chicken flavor that you're looking for. Now, time for seasoning. So, of course, we're going to use the fresh herbs from the garden as much as you like. Sage is required, as my daddy would say, and loads of black pepper always. And a little salt. We are so close to getting this in the oven and having a wonderful meal. So at this point, we are ready to put our squash dressing in our roaster, or you can use a cast iron skillet or something like that if you'd like to. But I like this old roaster. It just works for me, and it looks like dressing should be in this roaster. So we're gonna just put this in our pan. We've got our oven on 325, 350. My oven is a little hotter than most because it's a commercial oven in the milk house. And so I turn it down to about 325. So you test out your oven and see how it works for you. Darling, the squash dressing is going in the oven now, so you'll have to take some home with you this later.
Ooh, but that's only good.
See, that's what I like. Nice and hot. So let's see what we've got. It's been in probably about 25-30 minutes. That's all. A dressing in August, and you're using up those beautiful, beautiful squash that you had at the end of the season. So let's plate up some of the squash dressing. Oh, it's gonna be so moist. Yay. Look at that, beautiful. Okay. And then, while this was in the oven, I had put in some black beans. My grandmother used to call this black gold. And so we had a lot of black green beans growing up. And these are super easy, quick to cook. I pre-soak them for maybe 30 minutes in some hot water, and then I pour that off, put it in kind of a rolling boil of water, a little bit of salt. That's really all you need, because the flavor is actually in these beans. So to top this, because you want to make it look spectacular, it's a little yogurt, Greek yogurt. This adds protein, and it just adds that sour cream type of topping that you want for your black beans. And then whatever jelly or jam that you have, instead of cranberry sauce, I'm using fig. This is our fig jam for this summer. So these are our figs. These are our blueberries. You can put either one on the dressing, and it's going to act like your cranberry sauce. So this makes this so spectacular. It fits. Now, of course, we have to top this off with the perfect drink. You can see that beautiful gold cream on the top. Just give it a little bit of a shake and pour it. I like mine over ice because I want it super cold and refreshing for lunch. This is a 5-star meal on the farm in minutes, and you can have it too. This is Reese Waldo wishing you, as always, blessings of great abundance. Thanks for watching.